Let's see how to upload a project or a folder to github.com. So I have this folder. In my case, it's just a website that I downloaded completely from the internet, but it can be any project that you want in any programming language, and it can even be completely unrelated to programming, just a bunch of files that you want to store in github.com. So what we're going to do first is open the web browser and head over to github.com. And you're going to need a github.com account. So either sign up if you don't have an account yet, or sign in if you already have an account. Great, and now that we're logged in, we're going to create a new repository, which we're going to do from here, a new repository. And we need to give a name to this repository. So I'll call it website1 to be consistent with the name of the folder on my desktop, the one I wanted to upload to github.com. So this is the name of the folder, and I'm going to use the very same name, but you can use any name you want for the repository. And you can make this new repository either public, so anyone can access it, or private, and then only you or people you grant access to can access. I'm going to go with public for this demonstration, but you can go with either one. Notice that I'm not going to add the README file because I already have some files that I want to upload. These are the files in the folder on my desktop, so I'm not going to add the README file, and let's just create the repository. Great, and we got some instructions and we'll soon get back to them. But first we're going to install Git. So Git can be installed from git-scm.com. And here you can download Git for Windows, so let's do that. And I'll go with a 64-bit version. And the installer is being downloaded. And it was downloaded. Let's start the Git installation. We first need to accept the license terms. And we can choose the Git installation folder. Unless you have a good reason to change it, I recommend to go with the default. So that's what I'm going to do, I'll just go with the default. And now we're going to get a long list of questions, and I'm just going to next my way through them. So I'll change nothing and just hit next over and over again. Great, and Git is being installed. And Git was installed. Let's close the installer. And now let's get back to the instructions we got on github.com on our new repository. So here on the left, I have the folder that contains the project that I want to upload. So I'm going to right click here and choose Show More Options. And then Git Bash here. And Git Bash is a command line tool for Git that's a bit similar to the Linux terminal. So let's start going through the instructions. So what the first one does is create a file that only contains the name of the repository and nothing else. The purpose of this command is to make sure that we have something in our folder and it's not completely empty. Since I have many other files, I don't need this line and I don't want this readme.md file, so I'm going to skip the first one. But if your folder is completely empty, you probably want to copy this line and then run it in the Git Bash. Let's now move on to the second one, this one. And what this one does is initialize our folder as a Git repository. Now, if we take a look at the folder itself, it seems that nothing changed, but actually something did change. And to see it, we're going to ask Windows to show hidden files and folders. And as you can see, we now have this .git folder. It's a hidden folder, so we don't see it by default. And this folder is essential for Git to work correctly. And this is what sets the folder as a Git repository. So we now have this folder, and we know that our folder was set as a Git repository, so let's hide it. And let's move on to the next command, which is this one. And the idea here is that we need to use the add command for all of the files that we want to upload. Now, Git works in two stages, stage and commit. So in order to commit any file, we have to first mark it as staged using the add command. Now, in the example here, they only add the readme.md file. And that's because they assume you only have this readme.md file in your repository. But since in our case we have a long list of files, we're not going to add them one by one. What we are going to do is use git add and then dot, which means adding all of the files within the folder. So I'll just type git add and then dot. And the dot means all of the files and folders within this folder. So let's add them. And if we now run the git status command, we can see that all of the files are green and they are under this category, changes to be committed, which means that they are all staged. So we staged all of them. Let's move on. And the next command is the git commit command. And this is the command that's actually going to create the commit, which can be later uploaded to github.com. So let's copy this command. And by the way, we can see here the commit message within the quotes. So right now the commit message is first commit. You can of course change it if you want, but I'm going to go with first commit. So let's just hit enter. And you can see that we got an error because our user is not defined yet within Git. So let's configure our user using these two commands. And now that we configured our user, we will be able to commit the staged files. And the files were committed. Let's move on to the next command. And what this command does is creating a new branch, which is called main. You can use any name you want for your branch, but the convention is to use main. The next command is creating the remote repository, which is on github.com. And notice that this link is based on your username on github.com and the name of your repository. So what this command will do is link the remote repository on github.com to the local repository on the local computer. And all that's left is running this command, the push command, that will upload our commit to the remote repository on github.com. We now need to log in to GitHub, but since we're already logged in here in the browser, all we need to do is click here, sign in with your browser. And then we need to authorize the Git credential manager. And it's done. And as you can see, everything is being uploaded now to github.com. And the commit was pushed, and if we now refresh the view in our repository, in the remote repository on github.com, we can see all of the files over here on github.com, and we can see the contents of any of them. So for example, index.html, and here's the code of this specific file. Let's now say that I want to download this repository back to my computer or to any other computer in the world. All I need to do is click here on code and copy this line by clicking here, and we copy the link to this specific repository. So let's, as an example, clone this repository to C workspace. So first let's create this folder on the C drive. And here I'm going to open the git bash again. So right click, show more options, and git bash here. And we simply need to run the command git clone, and then paste the link we just copied. And we get an exact copy of our repository over here.